We are the ones who don't know what we're fighting for. Give us a gun and send us all off to war. We are the ones who grow up in violent homes. We are the ones who don't know what's right or wrong. I know. We are the ones. We are the ones. We are the ones who were born into war. We are the ones. We are the ones. We are the ones who just don't give a fuck no more. No more. We are the ones who don't know why we're losing score. Give them a badge so they could send us to the morgue. We are the ones who are scared to walk out the door. We are the ones who don't know what we're dying for. I know. We are the ones. We are the ones. We are the ones who were born into war. We are the ones. We are the ones. We are the ones who just don't give a fuck now. We are the ones. We are the ones. We are the ones who were born into war. We are the ones. We are the ones. We are the ones who just don't give a fuck no more. No more. Get off his fucking neck. Oh, that makes you know he can't fucking breathe. Oh, that makes you know we are the ones. We are the ones. We are the ones who were born into war. We are the ones. We are the ones. We are the ones who just don't give a fuck now. We are the ones. We are the ones. We are the ones who were born into war. We are the ones. We are the ones. We are the ones who just don't give a fuck no more. No more.
Warning: this podcast features adult subject matter, adult language, and things not meant for children to hear. Viewer discretion is advised. You've been warned. If it's Friday, I know I'm just as confused as you are. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of appropriate ages, to the latest episode of the I'm No Joe podcast, the show where every armchair quarterback can feel like Eddie Bravo. Today, I am flying solo dolo because, as we say around here, life happens. So, without further ado, we are going to jump right into it here because there is a metric fuck ton to get over, and I'm running this show solo. So we are just going to jump right in and start chopping right down on it. I, of course, am the meter. The meter does many things. If you are nasty, welcome to the channel. We're going to dive right into things. So to kick things off, as we like to do around here, we're going to start with a little bit of news and recent events because there is a mountain of it to get through. So we are going to jump at the top and try and run right through this as quickly as we can. To kick things off, as more often than not is the case in the news segment, we start back with last weekend, where right before, well, I guess it wouldn't be last weekend because we've had the time off, so it'd be 2 weekends ago now, at UFC Noche and the Spear. Right before the event kicked off, in typical UFC fashion, Dana White and Sean O'Malley did one of the worst promotional trailers I have ever seen for what looks to be one of the worst comic book adaptation movies I have ever seen. Coming up, the new Venom, what is it called? Last Dance, in which Tom Hardy chokes out Sean O'Malley trying to squeeze cash out of Dana White, and it looked real fucking stupid, just like the whole rest of the movie does. And to the surprise of no one, O'Malley has been way too distracted and got his ass beaten, lost his fucking belt, just like a lot of folks thought that he was going to. That being said, moving forward from there, we did get a couple of announcements here for UFC Salt Lake City 307 coming up next weekend. Pereira versus Roundtree at the top. Pennington versus Pena in the co-main. Double titles up for grabs. We did find out that Aljamain Sterling is out of the fight against Movsar Evloev, but is also actively talking shit, trying to work up other fights. So there's no telling what's going on with Aljo there. But the Salt Lake City card does look pretty decent overall. That being said, where did it go? Give me one moment here. I apologize. I lost the tab I was looking for. Oh, shit. Give me 1 second here. If I can't find it, I'll move on. But it is very relevant. Let's see. There we go. There we go. Okay. So, sorry about that. Got everything back out again. Moving on from there. Next weekend, Kevin Lee will officially make his MMA return after suffering the leg injury and the subsequent series of injuries that followed after that. He will be competing at Lights Out Championship tomorrow night in Wayne, Michigan, against Tiago Oliveira. The story around Kevin Lee isn't so much that he's making his MMA return to a no-name organization like Lights Out Championship. The real story is that he offered to fight on the Dana White's Contender Series for $2,000 to earn his way back to the UFC. And Hunter Campbell told him, "Nah, we're good. We don't need you for $2,000 on the Contender Series. We have more than enough people already. We're good. Just go do Kevin Lee things." And he still doesn't get the fucking clue. He's still talking about how he's going to do good this weekend and then insist that they get him back into the UFC, which we all know that's not how that fucking works. But Kevin Lee's going to Kevin Lee. So all we can do is sit back and watch and see how this sad story unfolds even further. That being said, coming up 3 weeks from now, no, month from now. Nope, I'm bad at dates. November 23rd. UFC Macau has officially been confirmed, and they are starting to stack that card out. As of yesterday, they added Volkan Ozdemir versus Carlos Ulberg, which is a pretty interesting fight. Yan Xiaonan versus Tabitha Ricci, which is a really good fight. And then here we go. Song Kanan versus Muslim Salikov, which is a good fucking fight. Kong Wang, who just looked like an absolute fucking stud, is getting back in there to take on Gabriela Fernandez. And then headlined by Piotr Jan versus Davison Figueiredo. That card's stacking up real nice. Yeah, I don't know why I went to Macau card first because that's not next. But Alberta, Canada is getting another card this year. UFC Edmonton will be November 2nd. Not as good as the Macau card, but they are definitely stacking it up here. Ayman Zahabi versus Pedro Munoz. Mike Malott versus Trevin Giles. Marc-Andre Barriel versus Dustin Stolfus, which will be a decent one. Charles Jourdain versus Victor Henry. I've been waiting for that one. Derek Lewis versus Janata Denise. they're really just running out of people to let Derek Lewis fight at this point. But co-main event, Aaron Blanchfield versus Rose Namajunas, and main event, Brandon Moreno versus Amir Albazi. Quick side note, if anybody can figure out what the fuck Amir Albazi has done to earn his spot in the UFC, let alone a main event against someone like Brandon Moreno, please let me know, because I've been following the UFC as long as the UFC has been the UFC, and I cannot for the life of me figure out what the fuck this clown has going for him aside from ties to some oil dictators and some fucking oligarchs over in the Middle East. He's not good, and he has no big wins on his resume, but somehow he's getting a fucking main event title eliminator essentially versus Brandon fucking Moreno. It does not make sense. But speaking of things that do not make sense, the rematch that no one asked for, Randy Costa versus Brandon Davis, is officially going to happen November 15th in Biloxi, Mississippi on Game Bread FC. No, excuse me. They've changed the name again. Now they're going by Game Bread Bare Knuckle MMA. It's always been Bare Knuckle MMA, but they called it Game Bread FC for a while. Decent card overall. Predominantly ex-UFC guys. Jason Knight versus Joshua Weems is going to be a crazy fight. Curtis Millender versus Jesse Ronson's a good fight. Kevin Lee is going to be on that card, so that's a thing technically. Alessio Sakara versus Prince McLean. Interesting matchup. Chase Sherman versus Maurice Green. Heavyweight craziness. And then, of course, Randy versus Brandon for the bantamweight title fight in Game Bread. Game Bread Bare Knuckle. I almost did it again. Here we go. So this is the big one that I was looking for, the tab that I lost earlier. Former one double champ, attempted triple champ, Rainer de Ritter, not only seemed to have left one championship not that long ago under active contract, but then went and actually took a fight under the UAE Warriors banner. Sorry, I got something on my eye. It's driving me crazy. But actually took a fight under the UAE Warriors banner, won it quickly, and now, without any specific clarification as to what's going on with the UFC or with their the ONE FC contract, Rainer de Ritter has officially signed with the UFC. Not only has he signed with the UFC, but he is signed and has his debut date and opponent already. He will be making his debut November 9th against Gerald Meerschaert. Unfortunately, it's going to be an Apex event, but Rainer de Ritter is jumping right into action in the UFC. Rainer de Ritter was one of the first double champ status fighters in ONE championship, and was one of the first guys to challenge for a third belt to try and become the world's first triple division active champion. Did not go his way thanks to Anatoly Malikin, who now holds both of the belts that Rainer de Ritter used to hold, but he's not there anymore. He's coming to the UFC now, so it's going to be real interesting to see how his skill set works out, especially against a guy like GM3, who is on a fucking hot streak right now. So I'm very curious to see how RDR does in the UFC, specifically getting a debut against GM3 on the roll that he's on right now. Could be real fun. Well, it's been talked about, it's been alleged, it's been insinuated, it's been rumored, and now it is officially official. November 16th will be UFC 309 live from Madison Square Garden, New York, and it will be headlined officially by John Jones versus Stipe Miocic for the heavyweight belt that neither one of them should be eligible to fight for right now. It is officially official. The other big fight announced for UFC 309 from MSG is the one that a lot of people have been rumoring about. It is now officially confirmed directly from the UFC. Ink is signed. Excuse me. Names are signed. Ink is dried. All that good shit. Michael Chandler has officially moved on from Conor McGregor and will be rematching Charles Oliveira on the 309 John Jones undercard. So interesting in both matchups to see how that shakes loose. And then we got a small spattering. They're still building it. Obviously, we're still a little ways out. But UFC 310, the final pay per view of the year from December, has added a series of very interesting matchups to it here. The first one, Chase Hooper versus Clay Guida. That's got interesting matchup written all over it. Tatiana Suarez versus Verna Yonderova. Title eliminator essentially for the ladies' side. Nick Diaz, that's right. Nick Diaz versus Vicente Luque has officially been moved to UFC 310. Michael Chiesa versus Max Griffin is set for UFC 310. And then the big one. They have confirmed now that Cyril Gane versus Alexander Volkov is officially off of the UFC Paris card, off of UFC 308. It has now been pushed all the way back to December. Officially, Cyril Gane versus Alexander Volkov will take place at 310 in December on the final UFC pay-per-view of the year. That being said, we have some non-fight announcement news in the UFC to go over. Well, in general to go over here. We'll start with the UFC because we got a pair of oh shits. The first one, the relatively brand new fighter, Irina Alekseeva, the what the fuck did they call her? Lady Ronda or something like that? Iron Ronda. Yeah, she's in a bit of trouble to say the very least. But it's not entirely her fault. It is, but it isn't. The problem is her fault. The situation is not. So Irina Alekseeva has, let me confirm this, not once, not twice, but 3 times in the last year tested positive for exogenous testosterone, meaning she's using some type of testosterone cream to get more jacked. And they confirmed it with 3 separate tests with varying levels and confirmation. But it happened while the USADA transition was happening, when USADA was on its way out and World, what the fuck are they called? What are they calling themselves now? Combat Sports Anti-Doping, Drug-Free International. That's the one I was looking for. But Combat Sports Anti-Doping is apparently what they're changing their name to, or what they're going by now. The new company handling the drug screening for the UFC. But she had initially tested positive. Let me see. When was the first one? June 21st of last year. Then again on October, or no, again in August, and then again in October. So 3 separate incidents. Yeah, October, August, and September. All 3 times. It's a snafu though, but she's suspended 1 year retroactively from the first time she technically tested last year in October. So she is re-eligible again in 2 weeks, essentially. So a 1 year suspension for testosterone use in a lady turns into an actual like 3 week suspension because USADA fucked it up so bad. Now on the other side of things, PFL is not having a good time, and it's also, surprise, surprise, kind of tied to USADA, but this time it's because USADA is actually doing what they're supposed to be doing on time. Daniel James, PFL heavyweight, has been suspended for 10 months, strange time limit, for the 3rd time in 2 years. He has provided a hot, hiccups. He has provided a hot sample to USADA. This time, he was positive for 4-cyanophenylmethanol, a metabolite of letrozole. I thought, wait a minute, letrozole isn't something that I'm familiar with. It's not something that I don't think very many people, if anyone, has been suspended for using before. What the fuck even is letrozole? So I did my diligence here and I looked it up. Letrozole, excuse me, it's labeled how to pronounce it on the website here, is a breast cancer treatment drug for women. Postmenopausal breast cancer treatment drug for women. But one of the things that it does is acts as a hormone regulator to help inhibit estrogen and encourage testosterone production and absorption by the body. So he's trying a roundabout way because he'd already been caught 2 other ways trying to use letrozole now for an estrogen blocker to help get the testosterone going in, because Daniel James is 43 now, and at heavyweight, that weighs extra heavy. So yeah, he is officially out until, let me see. Oh, I just saw it. May 10th of 2025. So good. That being said, another Misfits boxing event, another fucking ridiculous fight that's not an actual scheduled fight because they can't work with decent people or have adequate security anywhere they go. Just ridiculousness. Moving right along from there, the big one, the final news piece for this week. The UFC has once again tentatively reached an agreement in the antitrust lawsuit here. This time is a little bit different. The original agreement that the UFC put forth was $330 million to settle both lawsuits total. Rightfully so. The judge kicked that one back and said, no, that's not going to work. Moment. Sorry about that. My allergies are kicking my ass. But in the first settlement agreement, it was $330 million to cover both antitrust lawsuits and all parties included. That one got kicked back. This time they have reached another tentative agreement. Again, waiting on the judge to determine if they're going to allow it to go forward or continue to trial in February as originally scheduled. This one's a little different, but not much. This is just $375 million, so they only added $45 million. But this one is only for the first lawsuit, for the Kung Lee lawsuit. This one does not have any part or any settlement ties attached to the second lawsuit. It's still not a good deal. They still shouldn't take it. But the problem is you've got guys like Tom Lawler out there on social media who was essentially stripped of his UFC career because of faulty handled USADA drug testing, who has got lots of medical bills and a family, and he's hurting right now because the UFC essentially blackballed him from fighting. So he's never been able to get back to where he potentially was. And he wants the settlement because he needs the money to take care of his family. The fact that he is out there saying publicly he is willing to settle this fucking case because he needs the money to live, to take care of his family, shows you how undervalued fighters truly are by the UFC. Because Tim Sylvia went through a very similar situation a couple years back. The screws that he got put into his arm for one of his biggest title fights ever are rusting in his arm and causing infections. And he had to have them removed. The UFC wouldn't help him with that. He has no medical insurance. It was a whole snafu. That's a whole nother fucking show that we could get into one day, but not for right now. But this is, hopefully the judge kicks this one back as well, is what I'll say. Because while, yes, this is better than the previous offer, this is still not even close to touching what should be enough just to take care of these fighters that help make the UFC what it is. So hopefully this one gets kicked back as well. But UFC being what it is, I doubt it. That being said, um, run down real quick the combat sports menu for the weekend, because even though it is already Friday evening, there's quite a bit going on tomorrow as well. So do this real quick as we run through things so I don't forget till the end of the show. Starting things off tomorrow, PFL Europe, the 2024 playoffs start tomorrow at 12 noon Eastern, 11 a.m. Central Standard Time. Couple of names that folks might recognize on there. Roger Huerta is fighting in the co-main event, for fuck's sake. There's some interesting matchups on that card. Also kicking off at noon Eastern, 11 a.m. Central tomorrow, Brave Combat Fighting Championship, live from Slovenia, another European UFC feeder organization. If you just need some more punchy kicky and you don't want to recognize anyone, plenty to go over there. Also kicking off at noon Eastern, 11 a.m. Central Standard Time tomorrow is UFC Paris, live from the City of Lights. We will talk more about that here in just a minute, but not to be outdone, there is still more after UFC because they're starting so fucking early. 12 p.m., or excuse me, 12 a.m. on the other side of things, Saturday evening / Sunday morning, 1 a.m. Eastern Time, midnight Central Standard Time, Ryzen 48. A bunch of interesting matchups from over in the land of the rising sun, Japan. Robert D'Souza in the main event. There are some interesting matchups on this card. Again, it's Ryzen, so there's questionability to the validity of any fight, including the one Archuleta fight opening the fucking card. But, there is combat sports to be had tomorrow evening. Sunday evening. So, that being said, we are going to run through real quick here. Here we go. I'm No Joe Grand Prix, Tapology.com, all that good stuff. We've got a group. I'm ImNoBookie 965. Links down below. If you're not in it, get in it. We've got a Grand Prix going on right now. As of the end of the card, 2 weeks ago from the Sphere, sitting atop the leaderboard is Slowbake at 1380. Sitting just behind him is Golf T at 1370. Sitting in third place just behind Golf T is myself with 1355. So the top 3 places in this Grand Prix are separated by a total of 25 points. Christian has the lead by 10 points over Golf T. Golf T has second place over me by 15 points. From there, it does drop a little bit steeper. Donna sits behind me in fourth place at 1,115 points. Don sitting behind her at 990, and Vindog the Booty Hog standing firmly on his dick right now at 870, having a rough go of things. But we have still got this upcoming weekend in Paris, Salt Lake City 307, and then the final week back in Vegas after that to wrap things out. 3 more events in this Grand Prix before we head into the winter final Grand Prix of the year to kick everything off and round out our Tapology competitions for the 2024 season. If you are not in the group yet, join the group. It is free to make an account. It is free to join. It costs you no money. And the Grand Prix is coming up for the end of the year. That being said, jump over here to some interesting UFC odds here. Now, I am not Golf T. I do not use MGM Grand. I can't get that shit to work. I have got DraftKings pulled up right now, and there are, as you might expect, quite a bit of coin flip fights on this card, but there are some interesting odds that I did not expect, to say the very least, on here. A couple of pretty big ones here. One of the biggest on the card I did not see coming. Ludovic, excuse me, Ludovic Klein versus Roosevelt Roberts. I think that this fight could be fun, but not terribly excited about it. I don't think it has that much potential as a matchup. Vegas seems to think I'm wrong, though. Vegas has got Ludovic Klein coming in as the minus 1,000 favorite over Roosevelt Roberts, the plus 650 underdog. That is fucking crazy. Um, Vince Morales making his return to the UFC is the plus 295 underdog in his matchup against the minus 375 favorite Taylor Lapilus. I don't see that big of a gap in that matchup either, but apparently Vegas does. Umar C versus Down Jung. Umar is minus 600 favorite against the plus 440 Giant Korean. Again, I don't think that these matchups are that big, but Vegas seems to think so. And there was another big one here that I saw. Oh, yeah. Here we go. This is the one that probably aggravates me the most out of all the odds that I have seen so far for this card. Gabriel Miranda, a plus 440 underdog to a minus 660 favorite and Morgan Chartier. I have very little doubt that Morgan Chartier is capable of winning this fight, especially at home. But a minus 660 favorite against a guy like Miranda, who's a plus 440, these two are both fucking cans. This should be a coin flip odd at best. I encourage anyone who is watching and or listening to this, do not put your fucking money on either one of those gentlemen. Chartier has a very good chance of winning that match, but not enough to take a negative 600 wager on him. And I don't have enough confidence in Miranda to tell you, go ahead and put your money on the plus 440 favorite, or the plus 440 underdog, rather, and make some money, because they're both fucking cans. Neither one of them deserve the odds they're getting here. That being said, kind of the opposite side here, one that I feel should have bigger odds, especially after the weigh-ins, and doesn't, the fucking people's co-main event. William Gomi versus Joe Anderson Brito. First of all, Joe Anderson Brito was a fucking scumbag. Been saying it for a long fucking time, and he proved it on the stage at the fucking weigh-ins. Not once, not twice, 3 fucking times. Joe Anderson Brito is a piece of shit. He shouldn't be in the UFC to begin with, but they're letting him there, and they're putting him on the big fucking stage in Paris, and I hope he fucking wins, just so that the UFC looks stupid. Because William Gomi isn't a world breaker. Neither is Joe Anderson Brito. But this looked fucking horrible. This looked horrible at the weigh-ins. If you haven't seen the video, go back and look at the whole fucking arm grab bullshit. And again, and to the point that they had to fucking separate him and couldn't even let him do a face-off. Yeah, Brito's a fucking piece of shit, and he can go fuck himself. I got nothing against William Gomi, but I don't think this is going to be the big moment that he thinks it is either. That being said, co-main event, Nasruddin Imavov versus Brandon Allen. I think this might be a little bit of regional bias here. Brandon Allen as a plus 170 underdog to the minus 205 Nasruddin Imavov. I like Nasruddin Imavov, but I think this is definitely regional bias, because Brandon Allen, I don't really care for as a person. He's kind of a cunt and an asshole and a salty bitch all the time, even when he wins. But he is on a hell of a fucking winning streak in the octagon right now, and that cannot be denied. So the fact that he's on as big of a tear as he is, plus just fought the orc in the fucking casino at the PFL card not that long ago, the fact that he's the underdog against Imavov, who I like, but has not done as much in his career, especially recently, as Brandon Allen has, to see Imavov as the minus 205 favorite definitely shows a little bit of regional bias being pushed into Vegas, in my opinion. Now, the main event. The main event is essentially a giant coin flip, but it kind of makes sense. Hanato Moicano is a plus 215 underdog versus Benoit Saint Denis in a minus 265 favorite. Given the situation recently, that fight against Dustin Poirier with staph infection under the influence of antibiotics still left Benoit Saint Denis looking pretty good. And enough so that pretty much everyone, myself included, are pretty confident that he's going to take this fight. I don't think he's going to walk through Moicano by any stretch of the imagination. Moicano has got leaps and bounds better jiu-jitsu and ground game than Dustin Poirier does. And we saw what he was able to do with it. Granted, versus a tarnished or a diminished version of BSD in the previous matchup, but I think that combination of events and situations will all roll up together, and I think BSD is going to be a lot better in this particular matchup, at least. That being said, let's run down this UFC card real quick here. A cans and contenders-esque situation, if you will. Run it through real quickly. Main opening card kind of sucks. Jacqueline Cavalcanti versus Nora Cornoli. Cornol, however she says it. Interesting, not great. Victor Altamirano versus Daniel Barez. Potential. Interesting, not great. Eileen Perez versus Daria Zelenjakova. If you saw Eileen Perez shaking to get onto the scale and then shaking to get off the scale and having to be helped to the back after missing weight, she looked better in the face-off, but still, this is a bad matchup. This was a bad matchup to begin with. I like Eileen Perez, but on top of the fact that I don't need to see her twerk on another fucking commentator again, I kind of want to see Daria win this fight just to teach her a bit of a fucking lesson, because something clearly went wrong in her camp for her to come in having this much trouble making weight she's never had trouble with in her entire professional career. There's some fuckery here, and for her to try and immediately downplay it and say that there was nothing wrong, that she'll be okay, blah blah blah. No, that's not how you do things at the top level. Taylor Lapilus versus Vince Morales. Interesting fight. I don't think it's going to be that great. I don't think the odds that it's getting are what it deserves. Opposite for Ludovic Klein versus Roosevelt Roberts. I don't think that fight's going to be that great, but it's got huge odds for some fucking reason. Same with Umar Sy versus Dawn Jung. I think that's actually going to be a decent fight. Light heavyweights of lesser known proportions, should we say. Going to be interesting. Kutalava versus Ivan Erslan. I don't think that fight's going to last long. I have a feeling Erslan's going to put Kutalava out. And if he doesn't, it's going to just be a real boring 15-minute wrestlefuck blanket fest. Not a lot of fun. Faraz Siam versus Matt Frivola. One of the few fights on this card that I am genuinely excited for, because I'm curious what version of Matt Frivola is there. We have seen him hot and cold, hot and cold, hot and cold. Faraz Siam, for all the hype he had coming in, hasn't necessarily lived up to it. He hasn't been terrible, but he hasn't been that great either. He hasn't lived up to the hype that was put on him coming in. Premier Prelim, Morgan Charrier versus Gabriel Miranda. Interesting fight. Don't think it's going to be that great for the odds that it's got. I think they're both kind of fucking cans. But the main card does open up fairly interesting. Kevin Jousset versus Brian Battle at 170 pounds. I kind of like Battle at 170. He's kind of a cunt outside the octagon, but at 170 pounds in that cage, he's doing pretty good fucking work. I don't know what Jousset really has to offer, but I think this will be a good way to get a better idea of it. Then, of course, William Gomi versus fuck Joe Anderson Brito. This would be where I would say to take your break. If you need to go take a shit, if you need to do a dab, if you're going to go grab some McBurgers or whatever the fuck you're doing, because it's lunchtime when this fight's going to happen, this would be the one that I would recommend walking away from. William Gomez is not a world breaker, and Joe Anderson Brito is a cunt who doesn't deserve your attention. Let them fucking do their thing. Come back. Co-main event. Imava versus Allen. Could be fun. Could be real fun. I don't know that it's going to be, though. We'll see how much the hometown crowd, or the home crowd, not necessarily hometown, but home crowd, helps Nasruddin Imavov against Brendan Allen. I think it could be fun. I don't think it's going to be the best fight on the card, but I think it could be fun. The main event, though. The main event is, in my opinion, hands down the best fight on the card. Renato Money Moicano. Renato wants money, baby. Versus Benoit Saint-Denis. Saint-Denis coming in off of that crazy fucking fight and loss to Dustin Poirier. We now know that he had staph. He was on antibiotics, yada, yada, yada. Still put up a hell of a fucking fight against the very game Dustin Poirier. Now he's looking to turn around. Moicano wants money. Plain and simple, but he also understands how big and serious this fight is. If you've been following his socials, he's been taking this fight very seriously. He's not overlooking it. He's not overlooking the potential danger that BSD presents, but he also has his eyes on bigger prizes as well. So it's going to be kind of interesting to see how this one shakes loose, but that is the card for UFC. That is going to be what I have got for the show this week. Just a rough week all the way around, and we have got all sorts of interesting shit coming up next week. So if you like what we get up to around here, patreon.com/ImNoJoe is the best way to help out what we do. Little as $1 a month will help us do what we do. Get your name as a thank you at the end of every broadcast on the channel and give you unrestricted access to the unaired and unairable content that we just can't put public. We appreciate you just the same. We do this pretty much every Thursday, Friday when shit happens like this. YouTube.com/ImNoJoe. If you're not able to catch it live, the replays do stay up, but we also do the week after the shows go live, put the all audio version up at anchor.fm/ImNoJoe through your podcast consumption platform of choice, Google, Spotify, Apple, you name it, everywhere podcasts can be had. You can get ours as well through there. All the socials for everybody down in the description. Slow Bake, Golf Tee, myself, the ImNoJoe stuff, my personal stuff, it's all down below. If you want to get in touch with any of us, all of our contacts are down there. The ImNoJoe Discord server links are down there. All the fun can be had down there. If you appreciate what we get up to around here, thank you. First and foremost, please give us a thumbs up if you like it. It actually does help just the tiniest bit. Subscribe if you haven't. Make sure your notifications are turned on so you don't miss an episode of the show, because we appreciate you just as much as you appreciate us. On the opposite side of that coin, though, if you don't like what we get up to around here, first and foremost, what the fuck are you still doing this deep into a podcast that you didn't enjoy? Give it a thumbs down and then go fuck yourself. We won't even dispute it. That being said, when we wrap things up around here, that is not the end of the fun. This morning, the boys dropped their new podcast. One of these Wednesdays coming up, Golf Tee will be bringing back the Foggy Fairway. I think we're 2 weeks out now from when he comes back. In the meanwhile, he's got plenty of good stuff over on his YouTube channel to check out in the meanwhile. And we got plenty of stuff here for you to fill your needs up with in between now and next week in the next show coming up. That being said, over the course of tomorrow, if there are any interesting and relevant big finishes, I will do my damnedest, since we don't do review shows anymore here, over on the Shorts tab, because YouTube's got little tabs at the top of the page now. The YouTube Shorts tab. If there is a good finish, I will try and give you a review. Depending on where that finish is, I will either have a picture or a video to show you the finish itself and throw that up there for you so you can stay informed of all the good fun that happens over the course of the weekend / tomorrow. But that being said, that is all we have got for this particular episode. So until next time, boys and girls, don't let ignorance stop you. You can root for anything.
Everybody was kung fu fighting. Those kids was fast as lightning. In fact, it was a little bit frightening.
How do I say goodbye to what we had? The good times.